Hey everybody, thanks so much for joining me again here today. We are going to talk about one of my favorite things to talk about when it comes to narcissist, which is FOG. If you don't know what FOG is, it stands for fear, obligation, and guilt. And I do want to, if you want more information about it, I recommend that you visit a website called Out of the Fog. They do a great job of, defining the terms and helping you understand what it looks like, the type of abuse that's involved. And they really do a great job of going into more detail. Today, I'm going to focus more on my experience with this when it comes to my narcissistic mother. And just kind of break down how exactly it affected me, how I started to become more aware of what was happening once I understood what the term was. So let's get into it. My mom, so my mom had two favorite terms. We have love and respect for one another, and sometimes you do something because it's the right thing to do. Those were two things that she repeated constantly throughout my childhood, my adolescent years, and even as an adult. I mean, it just was something that she brought up all the time. So thinking about it, it's kind of funny, but I'm going to correlate these three things: love, respect, and doing something because it's the right thing to do, with FOG, okay? So let's talk about fear first, okay? So she says that our relationship's based on love, and I would say that it's based on fear, and here's why. So fear is a survival skill, right? When I'm around my mom, all I'm thinking about is surviving. If I really think about the difference between whether I love this person or whether I fear this person, the answer is pretty obvious. But because of the manipulation and abuse, psychological and emotional abuse for years and years and years, I replaced fear with love. So I thought that's what love was. I thought love was just doing whatever that person asked, and that's it. I mean, that's all I knew. So my mom was a successful person. She's an attorney, so she's kind of really good at arguing her side. She's really good at being intense. She's really good at a lot of things. Really good at being a narcissist. So that was kind of where it started. Was my mom was very successful at what she did, but that also translated into what started to happen was she would bring that mentality home. So instead of being done with work and coming home and being with me, it was she'd bring a lot of that intensity home with her. And I never knew when that was going to happen. Some nights she came home and she was just fine, I think. And some nights she came home and it was like, I don't know if you've experienced this, but it was like, "Hey mom, how are you? How was work today?" "Fine. How are you?" And then the cat would walk by or something and she'd be like, "Oh, hi, sweetie." And you're like, seriously? Like, okay. Just that weird treatment where like you're lesser than, but then the cat gets special treatment. And you're like, what the heck was that? Just part of the manipulation, the psychology. I grew to like really fear this, and this person, I grew to fear her coming home because I just never knew what to expect. Was she going to come in and it was going to be a fun night? We were going to get takeout and we were going to watch Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune? Or was she going to come home and expect there to be dinner waiting because she worked a 16-hour day, which she loved to remind me about all the time, and just kind of really like drag me under the bus? Like I was supposed to know that I was supposed to have dinner ready or something. Just constantly doing things like that. The thing that she did the most, though, that really got under my skin and really just kind of kept me spinning in circles of this cycle of fear, like never knowing if she was going to love me or hate me. She loved to treat me to nice things, right? So obviously she was successful. So I grew up fairly privileged, okay? So she would treat me to nice things. But then, you know, I kind of get used to that lifestyle. And if I asked her for nice things, pump the brakes, different story. So I maybe would ask for something nice. And she'd say, well, we can't really afford that right now. We can't afford that thing that I want. Because you kind of just went to this show and bought a bunch of jewelry for yourself, and you kind of bought yourself a new car recently. And okay, so I get, like, I'm a parent now, so I totally get, like, trying to afford things for your kids, and it's not that I don't have the money to buy my son the things that he wants, but you're trying to help them understand that sometimes it's not appropriate. So when my parents got divorced when I was 13, I became the man of the house, right? I was the son husband. I took care of my mom. I was kind of expected to rise to the level of the man of the house at 13, take care of things. I could handle that the answer was no. I would have been fine with that if the answer was just, hey, you know, I appreciate you asking, but hey, not right now. You know, maybe another time, like let's talk about it. No. But don't hand me some line like, we can't afford that right now. BS. Like, that's such a manipulative comment because it was hypocritical. And my mom always made statements like this that were hypocritical. She'd say, you know, I love you unconditionally, and then she would expect me to perform and do things for her that I felt like were not, that was not unconditional now. There's a condition on it. And I'll get into some examples of that as well. But it was like this where, okay, so let me give you another example. I went to college, and my first semester was really tough, and I failed one of my classes, and I was super scared to tell my mom, right? I think anybody would be scared to just admit that in general, right? This isn't necessarily just I'm scared of my mom from a narcissistic standpoint, but just because that's not good news. So I called up my mom, I'm telling her what happened, and I am just like waiting for the shoe to drop where she like loses it, right? The exact opposite happened. She's like, oh, hey, you know, life's like that. We fall down, we get back up again. You're going to figure this out. We're going to figure this out. Everything's going to be fine. This is just a life lesson. I was shocked. I was blown away. I mean, I was like, whoa, okay. But looking back on it now, when I look back at the examples of when my mom chose to support me and build me up, man, I mean, you talk about this higher level of manipulation. She knew exactly when to make sure that she gave me enough support to make sure that I felt like I could trust her and that I could share and be honest with her, it's amazing. So here's another example. So now it's kind of the opposite end. I'm trying to do something nice for her. Okay, she had mentioned, I think I mentioned to you, so she had bought a new car. Cash. She wanted the garage cleaned out so she could fit the car in the garage. So one day, while she was at work, I went through the entire garage. I cleaned out all the junk. I even had one of those e-waste services come by because we had a bunch of like old, like a VHS player and a laser disc player. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's a junk. I was really excited. I got it all cleaned up, had the car parked in the garage. So she came home, she parked the car in the garage, and she comes in the house, and I'm so excited. She is furious. And she calls me downstairs, and she's like, what happened? And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, there's a lot of stuff missing in the garage. And I'm like, yeah, I know. You wanted the garage clean. I cleaned it. And she's like, she is like pacing back and forth now at this point. And she's just like reeling. And I'm like, what's going on? And she's like, there was personal stuff in there. I had stuff I was saving. You were supposed to wait for me to do this. Which, one, no, she told me she expected it to be done so that way she could park her car in the garage. Two, what personal stuff? And so we're like talking about it, and I'm like, oh, I threw away all this. This was all junk. This was junk. And I threw away the VHS player and the Laserdisc player. She blew a gasket. She's grabbing her hair, and she literally goes, the Laserdisc player! I seriously, like, okay, so for as much as I feared my mom, I was laughing so hard inside, and it kept, I think I probably smirked, like, because it was hilarious to see her lose her mind over obsolete technology garbage. But she did this. She was, I don't want to say she was a hoarder, but she just placed value on things that didn't matter at all. And again, obviously now I know it had nothing to do with that probably. It was just the fact that I did something without her permission that she didn't like. She was not in control. She didn't like that she didn't have control over me in that situation to dictate everything I did. It was crazy, okay? So that was also one of the times where it started to become more clear to me that she was just insane. Years leading up to that point, all the other things she did were very manipulative and just kept me held down and really fear her. But this was at the tail end as I really started to like see her for who she was. Okay, so there's the love and the fear aspect, right? So let's talk about now the respect portion. Okay, so she would say we have love and respect for one another. The respect was actually obligation, right? So she would paint this picture of, I treat you this way, you treat me this way, we have respect for one another, we agree that this is how our household runs, and this is just what we believe and how we treat each other. So what that really meant was, she just wanted me to do exactly what she wanted all the time. If she asked me to do this, I'd do it. If she told me to do that, I'd do it, right? So she preyed on the fact that, right, so obligation is an innate sense of community responsibility. We all want to feel wanted. We all want to feel like a participant. So she preyed on that. She preyed on the fact that I wanted her to be happy with me.